Welcome to this, the first of many conversations into the sphere of public and private sector procurement opportunities, curated specifically to the dire and largely unmet needs of the Black-owned business community. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Bola Abisogun OBE. I am a chartered surveyor and chartered construction manager, turned management consultant and industry disruptor. Executive Director of Urbanists and founder and chairman of Diversity Surveyors, The Secrets in the Name. I am a board member of the London Chamber and founding member of the Chamber's Black Business Association. As such, and in my role as a giver, I am duty bound to impart my lived experience of this well-researched area of lackluster activity, and one that has in many ways caused me immense pain and loss during my own almost 3-decade career. So why aren't Black businesses winning work, particularly in the public sector? Why hasn't the well-documented business case that even our dear friend and colleague Baroness McGregor-Smith affirmed back in Feb 2017, and more recently Dr. Carlton Brown's Black Entrepreneur Report, with a foreword by our very own Lord Hastings of the BBA, and launched last year during Black History Month, still not yielded any significant volume of success for the non-traditional talent pool? When we refer to supply diversity, what do we really intend or actually mean? In the USA, they have defined a supply diversity program as a proactive business initiative which encourages the use of minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, historically underutilized owned businesses as suppliers. And it is not directly correlated with supply chain diversification. Or furthermore, in a post-George Floyd environment in the UK, is it still really only about economic size and not necessarily the ethnic origins of participating business owners? We've tried best endeavors. We've been patient. Well, I speak for myself. And we've hoped and supported the need for encouragement of contracting authorities and tier 1 suppliers to actively seek out diverse, fit to supply candidates and build those diverse supply chains. But from my own harrowing lived experience, it's been a monumental game of cat and mouse. And even after the derogatory chapter of sentiment that has perhaps fueled the Windrush disaster, shouldn't we simply be ring fencing commercial opportunities akin to what they do in the US and have done since the Civil Rights Act of 1965 and choose policy/legislation under the guise of affirmative action? As far back as August 2000, I've seen firsthand the societal and wider economic benefits of such policy and the equitable wealth creation that such policy and legislation can achieve. Are we going to be bold in the UK moving forward? Or does supply diversity in the UK simply attempt to address the unitary need for more SMEs to be engaged or involved in the government-funded procurement pie and command a larger slice of it and no more? Should there be more of an appreciation about the lack of diversity of thought, which can only emanate from the diverse business needs and experiences of various minority groups? And in a post-Brexit environment, recognizing the new and emerging landscape of procurement post-PCR 2015, can we truly throw out the old rulebook and reinvent the whole notion of social value whilst delivering better outcomes, all within the context of public sector procurement? Tailoring at least some of this emerging effort into the specific needs and aspirations of the Black business community, it is possible, isn't it? Well, joining me today to address and answer all of the above are my two amazing panelists. Rebecca Rees is a partner and head of public procurement at Trowers and Hamlins. She also leads the Building a Safer Future team at the firm and is a leading national expert in public procurement law, and according to Who's Who Legal and Chambers and Partners, is consistently ranked as amongst the world's leading government contract lawyers. Notably, Rebecca has formidable knowledge of the regulatory environment, sharp analytical skills, and the ability to produce clear and pragmatic advice. Rebecca has significant experience in advising clients in the public, private, and third sectors on public procurement, subsidy control, and building safety strategy issues. She advises clients on procurement strategy and structures, how to conduct flexible and compliant procurement procedures, and compile objective and transparent evaluation models and guidance. Rebecca, welcome. And we also have Louise Free, who is SIPS qualified and has over 15 years experience in social housing, working in procurement, development, and housing management roles. For those unaware, SIPS is the acronym for Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, and the industry benchmark for any credible procurement professional. Louise is responsible for the SEC Procurement Service, having worked with the Southeast Consortium since 2014. She manages the SEC procurement team and designs and implements the annual work plan, as well as leading on framework procurement, bespoke procurement projects, and supports the SEC customer base, largely local authorities and registered housing providers, typically producing and directing discussions of options around routes to market for their services. Additionally, Louise recognizes the benefits of the development of ongoing relationships with SEC framework suppliers to maximize insight and value creation for both customers and suppliers. Louise, welcome to you. So I hope you both and all, for the benefit of our audience, got the gist of my introduction, and because we've only got 35 minutes left, and I'm going straight in, if I may. So Louise, from an SEC perspective, and recognizing my earlier reference to the business case, organizational benefits, the McGregor report, etc., what exactly is a diverse supply chain, and why is having one so important?
Thank you, Bola. Thanks for that nice introduction there. Yes, well, certainly from our point of view, is something that we're very interested in, is something that we're very keen to hear everyone's views on in relation to this. I wanted just to give a little bit of an overview, first of all, in relation to, how Southeast Consortium operate in relation to their procurement and framework procurement. So we basically work on frameworks, and we provide a framework solution for our public sector customers in procuring the right contractor to support that customer in achieving their goals. So it's really important for us that we shape that procurement process to help us to get the supplier and the supply chain network in place that we and our customers need. So what we want to do is to create a really inclusive and representative process throughout the procurement where both success and failure is measured and monitored, and that means being perhaps a little bit more innovative around how we approach some elements of that procurement process. Procurement has been around a long time, as everyone knows, and actually you can quite easily get into a bit of a thing about saying, oh well, this is how I've always done it, this is what I'm going to carry on doing. And we don't, some organisations, including Southeast Consortium, to some extent, I suppose, you carry on with those processes and you want to make change. So to support that, what I would say, first of all, is that, with reference, Bola, that you made there to the work that's being done to review and improve procurement processes, particularly around construction, some of this obviously began as a result of things being seen to go wrong. So, sadly, the Grenfell situation was a bit of a starting point for some of this, but it has led to opportunities for change, which we are mindful of. And that is part of what we are looking to do as regards incorporation into our procurement processes going forward. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things in relation to this. We'll just quickly run through some elements of it. So the Building Safety Bill, for example, which does still require some further little changes and amendments. The Construction Playbook, which was issued towards the end of 2020, and the Gold Standard, which actually came out in 2021 and was launched only last week. They all make really comprehensive reading with the aim of generating better, safer, faster, greener procurement project outcomes. And Also, particularly in the case of the gold standard, the reference to intention, information, incentivisation and integration is to stabilise and support that procurement process in achieving the desired result. So key themes that have come out of that are about considering the use of contract form, for example, the alliance contract, which obviously supports different means of procuring and contract management, early supply chain involvement, and getting back to the topic in hand, SMEs and micro businesses. So from our point of view, we're the responsible purchasing body in relation to frameworks. And what we do is implement and act on change that comes out of process documents like this. The documents themselves are linked and they offer insight and guidance into how procurers and people like SEC can support and facilitate that change and improve the procurement outcomes. But it can be a bit confusing and needs to be interpreted. So we at SEC are really keen to help clients and contractors make sense of what it's all about and to help them benefit during that procurement process and get the result they need and maintain a relationship with us throughout that process as well. Now, what I would say about that, a part of making that successful procurement process happen is looking at how best to appoint your desired supply chain. And a diverse supply chain offers potential for particular benefits as a result. So that could be like things like specialist knowledge in a particular area, a closer client relationship, location knowledge, openness to innovation, as well as resident engagement and the sort of ongoing resulting added value that you get from that. Those types of things are the part of the process that we in SEC are looking to investigate and interrogate more throughout not only the framework procurement process, but in our relationship with customers as we work with them to manage their projects through those frameworks. Customers themselves often have a really good idea of what they want to happen. They sometimes need a little bit of coaxing around how they are going to achieve that. And I think we can help them through the maze of change that's come out in relation to some of these elements, but also point out to them how they can approach clarity of thought on the type of suppliers that they would like to support their project going forward. And that's where we are on the road with that at the moment. So we already have close relationships with a lot of our customers. One of our unique selling points for SEC is that we always maintain that contact with our customers throughout the process to make sure that they are on track with it and that they're happy, and that more importantly, we're doing the right things for them to achieve what they want as a result of it. So I think there is work to do on processes, but what I would say is SEC have a particular view on the culture as regards how we manage our relationships with customers, and that is key to everything that we do. And I think it's really important that we maintain that, and actually we want to be part of the customer's team, put it that way. So we want to see it from their viewpoint, not ours. From a procurement point of view, regulation-wise, yes, we do, because we want to keep them safe. But we also want to make sure that actually we are on board as an extension of their team so that we know what they are aiming to achieve and how we can help them to do that. And in doing so, we can get them to the point where they're clear about why they want to appoint a particular supplier type. They are clear about why they might be thinking in terms of supply chain and the diversity of it and what the added benefits are that might bring. So for example, I don't know, with a heat pump supplier, it may be that you have added benefits through working with a smaller supplier in the supply chain around that, in that they can give advice and be open to more specific innovation in relation to your requirements than perhaps a bigger supplier might be. So it's that type of thing. We're very happy to guide and advise to get the outcome that is required, taking into account that they are mindful and we are mindful of why somebody might be approaching a decision about a more diverse supply chain. So I think that's a little summary, but obviously I have more to say, so yes.
Yeah, a little summary with great context and depth. Thank you, Louise. And I'd throw in to that mix cultural competency on both sides of the equation there. But Rebecca, given your work in social value, would you care to offer your perspective on what diverse supply chains mean and their role in perhaps economic development stroke leveling up?
Sure, thanks, Bola. As Bola said, we're at a kind of time of great transformation in pure public procurement terms. It's the first area of law to go through that post-Brexit number 10 rules reform project, ostensibly because Dominic Cummings didn't like procurement. He wanted to reform it, given the first chance he had. We now know why. But as Bola says, it does give us a lot of opportunities to look at probably one of the main barriers for creating a diverse supply chain. And it's interesting that the government has been alongside preceding really their reforms for the procurement law. They preceded that with their social value model. And obviously Bola and I have spoken a lot about enabling BAME-led organisations into the supply chain. So I wanted to take that angle because I think the procurement is very clear, or the procurement rules are very clear, that you cannot discriminate against or in favour of certain classes of bidders. So just as you're not allowed to take into account ownership of a company in terms of their colour or ethnicity, when barring somebody from a project, you cannot positively discriminate in favour of BAME-led, women-led, veteran-led, in the case of the US, businesses as well. And that obviously creates tensions, barriers and difficulties when certain types of organisations, primarily SMEs, VCSEs, micro businesses, seek to access the public sector. Because what's traditionally happened is that the public sector has kind of bundled up their contracts and gone out to strategic suppliers. So the number one barrier is that procurement rules are supposed to be colourblind, but in actual fact, what happens is that then it discriminates against SMEs, VCSEs. And that, in terms of government review, has been their focus. So last year, we got the detail of the government's social value model and the themes in terms of social value that it wanted to push through procurement. So the policies it wanted to achieve. And it primarily focuses on SME and VCSE, so small and medium enterprises access to the public's purse. It really doesn't have anything to say about BAME-led organisations. And really, you can only take ethnicity into account when you're looking at contract performance. So is the fact that you need people that are culturally sensitive to Afro-Caribbean or Jamaican end users in a care home or anything important to that contract? And if it is, you can prefer organisations that employ Jamaican, Afro-Caribbeans to undertake that service. But whether that organisation is owned by Afro-Caribbeans has nothing, you cannot take that into account. And I think that in terms of access to the public purse, that is one of the biggest barriers, particularly because public sector clients, many of them have a commitment to or a stated commitment to the promotion of equality. So it does seem bizarre that the route, or one of the primary routes to kind of practice what they preach and ensure that that sticks, actually prevents them from positively discriminating in favour of class or classes of bidders. I would say that there are notable exceptions, and I notice that HS2 are on the call because HS2 has done a lot to encourage and cement supplier diversity throughout their supply chain. And I think that if you take that step forward, I wanted to pick up on two things. One, just a slight example, but two, what Bola said, which was we need to move the dial. And that is positive action from BAME-led organisations to approach clients like Louise, like London boroughs, councils, housing associations, NHS trusts, and actually start having those conversations. Because actually in all of the examples that I've seen across my professional life of people encouraging BAME-led, women-led suppliers, that has been as a result of a personal commitment by a project officer or a project lead to ensure that. So, for example, one London council in one of the phases of a huge regeneration project insisted that any architect that bid for the opportunity to design one of these phases had to partner with a BAME-led architectural firm in order to access that opportunity. Now, with my procurement lawyer hat on, I would say, ooh, not on all fours with the procurement rules, and there is a little bit of a risk of procurement challenge there. Did they get challenged? No, they didn't. And so it is about clients taking a brave decision in all of, and taking on board all of the risks and benefits of ensuring a diverse supply chain, to sort of take the action when the law is sort of rather unhelpful in this process. And there are plenty of conversations you can have with clients on the right side of procurement law. So ahead of any contract, clients should be going out to the marketplace and saying, what are our aims for the contract? Who should we be asking to bid for this? How should we be structuring the process to ensure that the outcome is reflective of the end users that we serve? I think Vicky might have just said something, so I'll get her to...
Thumbs up from Vicky.
I haven't actually read it yet, so I hope I'm not going to repeat what she says. Yeah, so, and I think that particularly when we act for local authorities and housing associations for example, repairs and maintenance, where people are going inside people's homes, councils and housing associations are mindful that they want the workforce doing that service, undertaking that service, to be reflective and proportionate to the customers that they serve. So I think I've just thrown out a whole load of ideas there. I think the thing is to pick up on Bola's thing about moving the dial. There needs to be positive conversations undertaken by you as Black-led companies and suppliers, and get into the councils and the housing associations to show them the benefits that there are of having a diverse workforce. Because I think that many commitments don't actually, although they're stated corporately, don't actually land when it comes to actually spending money in terms of the supply chain that they spend it with. Is that helpful, Bola?
That is too helpful, Rebecca. I knew 45 minutes was never going to be enough. We are 11:11. We have 19 minutes and we've hit 2 out of 5 of my questions. So much, but so valuable nuggets of information there that no doubt will be shared. I don't know where to start, so I won't. I'm going to move straight on to my next question, because it's an emotive subject, clearly, but you quite rightly reference some of the ongoing ambitions, some of the historic challenges. I've been one of those individuals that, as far back as 2000, has fought my way into those corporate C-suite offices to tease these conversations and win the hearts and minds about the why, the possibility, the need, the equitable demonstration of value creation, its social value, etc. I leveraged Section 106 as far back as 2003 and have failed miserably. So even with the instruments in place, there needs to be a will to land the aspiration in reality. And to that point, with all of that possibility, when things do go pear-shaped, and they will, and we can look at examples of where things haven't quite rightly followed the path of intention, you know, typically what happened over at London Borough Southwark, which was a great intention embroiled in complete contention. But when things do go pear-shaped, how can diverse suppliers, how can Black-led, Black-owned, Asian-led, Asian-owned, etc., how can they challenge the procurement process? And I'm going to open that up to you first, Rebecca, just to build on what you've just said around the why. How can diverse suppliers who are participating in the process, how can they challenge the outcome?
Yeah, I have to be quite careful, because we actually acted for Southwark in that issue that you said. But actually, what came out of that was the fact that Southwark wanted to do the right thing, and so they went out to re-procure a framework solely focusing on BAME-led consultants. So I think, and this is the issue, I think that the willingness is there. It's trying to reassure public bodies that if they set up their procurements in a way that will help BAME-led suppliers effectively bid for and win these procurements, that they won't be challenged. Yeah. And there are plenty of things that you can do as an organisation. You could, if you're setting up a framework, do a small lots or a separate kind of section for that, that focuses on the value and the diversity and the delivery kind of benefits that BAME-led organisations could deliver. So there are, you know, and I think that the pre-market engagement stage of all of these procurements are the best ways to challenge the client. There is absolutely no point in bidding for something, losing it, and then challenging it, because that door's shut. The challenge needs to come at the outset, when people are framing their requirements before they go out to the market. And so that's the first thing I would say. Secondly, if you do want to challenge it, then it is often, you know, that there has to be an acknowledgement that, you know, it's very expensive and won't always get you where you need to be. And I think that that's why I say, you know, if there is a commitment to moving the dial on the promotion of equality in all of its forms in these organisations, then it has to, the narrative has to start before those contracts are even advertised.
That's a great point. Great point. Louise, did you want to come in on that?
Could I just jump in just quickly on a couple of points on that, obviously from our perspective? And I'm thinking as we're speaking and talking through this, I know I said about, you know, early engagement and talking to customers about why they want to do things, and also talking to suppliers. We do have in place other routes to engaging with particularly smaller suppliers, say through a DPS, for example, a dynamic purchasing system. So we do have that option there, but I think it's funny listening to Rebecca speaking there. From our point of view, what we're saying to customers generally is, yeah, talk to us early, let us get aligned with you about what you want to do. We'll be thinking about how we can shape that to make that happen for you. We can talk to suppliers as well. We want to engage with a bigger base of suppliers to make this happen. That's all absolutely fine, and that is certainly what we intend to do and are doing now. If there is one little question mark around something, I suppose, which has just occurred to me from our perspective, is that as a procuring body, we tend to always present that, oh yeah, we're running this procurement in such a way that we're protecting you from risk and making sure that everything is compliant and you know, all those sorts of things which Rebecca's just mentioned, which are correct and right and in line with procurement regulations. The downside to that, I suppose, could be seen to be that by implication, we are potentially steering customers away from being a little bit more innovative in their thought. Where, ironically, when we were actually wanting them to start thinking along those lines, we're actively deterring them in some respects by saying, you know, oh, these are the procurement regulations, we protect you and make sure that happens that way. What perhaps we need to engage with a little bit more, and other procuring bodies out there, is around how you present that message in relation to your conversations with customers, so that actually it's not all about regulations. Are really important, don't get me wrong, and from a procurement perspective, that's how I'd be thinking. But there is another side to this, and I think from our point of view, we need to have a more kind of rounded view, perhaps, in those initial communications with customers. We're kind of on it as regards suppliers. We're being as inclusive as we would like to be, and obviously we continually improve that. But for customers, there is always an element of uncertainty, which we aim to reassure them on. And in reassuring them, sometimes we can, I suppose, potentially steer them away from something which might be a bit more out there, which perhaps could be, you know, the way they need to go.
And again, great points. And if I may, are there two things that spring to the top of your mind around what non-traditional Black, Asian-led suppliers, what can they do to better engage with the entire process? Apart from being fit to supply, by definition, they're credible, they've got track record, maybe not. They may not have 3 years, but they've got track record, they've got capability, they've got cultural competency, they've got all these other things that add the social value piece. But what can they do? Just two things, apart from reading the right literature and having engagement with these conversations. What can they do to engage with the public procurement opportunity? Just two things.
Well, I mean, I would say from our perspective, obviously we're always looking to broaden our supplier base. We do run a lot of information sessions and training sessions and contact sessions with suppliers generally. I think we would like to have a bigger range of suppliers being part of those. Obviously the onus is on us to, you know, ensure that contacts are made. But I think maybe even if it was customers themselves already have kind of relationships with some suppliers that would come from a more diverse base, and we want to encourage those customers to intensify those conversations with those particular types of businesses, so that we can actually bring them forward in the procurement process. Sometimes what it is about is not being familiar with what needs to happen, not being familiar with the process that we use, all that, you know, simple stuff really. And we know we've improved our website and we are always available to talk through things, but I think it's having the opportunity. So maybe being a little bit more visible, even in terms of talking to the customer first of all, and then by that route coming to us. I think we would be very keen to have those conversations, put it that way, and gather information about what we can do to facilitate.
Well, I hope if you could pop your website link into the chat, Louise, that'd be really helpful.
Okay.
As low-hanging fruit. Rebecca, I know you've got a wealth of ideas. Just a couple of low-hanging fruit solutions for diverse suppliers. What can they do? Two things they can do to get involved in this multi-billion pound per annum pie.
Yeah. So all of the relevant opportunities are published on Contracts Finders, which is a UK-based website that sets out every contract that the public sector will be spending money on. So that should be on kind of speed dial. You should be checking that every day. I mean, I just wonder, Bola, if there's a challenge back to the BBA, that obviously you've got a great supporter in terms of Lord Hastings. The SME Crown representative is Claire Dove, and she's done a massive amount, and I think, in pushing forward the SME agenda. And I think you should be matchmaking those two and saying, look, you know, you need to sort this out at a very political level, because I think the energy of those two actually kind of pushing this forward would be very compelling, because I think that there is this kind of top-down agenda that needs to be encouraged, which is government, if you are serious that a truly diverse supply chain is what is needed to make Britain great again. Actually, I think that's Make America Great Again, but I'm gonna
we'll take it.
Then actually you can't leave it to chance, because I think a lot of government policy is that if we push SMEs and VCSEs by chance, because of their size and profile, that will naturally support BAME-led organisations as well. And I think that that's kind of an assumption and a chance that Lord Hastings needs to push and say, well, actually, no, we actually need to be headlining this, and you need to be shouting about diversity in all, yes, in BAME-led, but also women-led and disabled-led. All of those agendas need to be pushed, and they can't be left to chance just through championing SMEs.
Agreed. That's a great point, and that's an action that's probably mobilized, because we have Liz, we have Victoria, we have S&M on the call as well. That's already gone into action, I can assure you, which is great. And if I may, can I come back to a point that was made around the role of the client? So I'm a tech fan, a lover of technology. Wrote my thesis in 1994 in AI and ML. Too far ahead of the curve to my own detriment, but I'm excited about the role of technology in procurement. Okay, and I'm talking about blockchain, I'm talking about distributed ledger technology, I'm talking about BIM and asset management, which we've just done successfully over at the SEC. I'm talking about smart contracts. What the tools that we can use to create more visibility, more agility, more accountability. What is the role of technology in procurement? And I'm asking you both the same question, because no doubt they are both impacting on the way you perhaps may be delivering your own professional services. So Louise, if I start with you first, the role of tech, how is SEC embracing that opportunity, if at all? And I know from a BIM perspective, because I'm working with Mark Baines already, that's already in play, but what's the role of technology for you?
Well, we were talking about technology earlier on, and I won't refer to my own lack of abilities in relation to technology, of course, because that's not the best starting point. But definitely there is a role to play. So, I mean, I think even on the most basic level, as regards what we do in relation to tender evaluations or initial contacts and things like that, we can run that in a much more kind of impartial way, and make sure that it's objective rather than subjective, put it that way. We did actually run a bit of a pilot thing with a framework that we put out last year, whereby we asked for the tenderers to effectively rate their own, it sounds quite strange when you describe it retrospectively, but we asked them to use the system to rate their own quality assessment in relation to quality questions that were asked, because then that kind of steered it away from it being a third party within either SEC or an external evaluator actually having a look at what those responses were about. So we kind of, what we are thinking in terms of is how we can shift kind of the manual handling of some of that procurement selection process into a more automated process, which I think is the way things are going anyway in relation to where we are in the world with what's been happening. But I think the benefits of that are that it becomes less about individuals looking at things. There is still a part to play as regards organisations in relation to some of that quality element, but for example with SQ, a lot of it's automated anyway, and certainly from the point of view of an ITT evaluation, it can be that we can, if we control it well and set it out properly at the outset and take the appropriate legal guidance, of course, in relation to this too, which I know Rebecca will be looking at carefully. That is what we instigated, and actually it did end up in a more straightforward and equitable outcome that's not to say it cannot continue to be improved, put it that way. So I think we are looking at technology definitely, and also sort of handling of data in relation to what we do with those data too. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I think it's continuing to emerge at the moment, and I think, you know, with the volume of interest that we have in lots of the products that we have, we've got to continue to focus on that.
Great. And just conscious of time, Rebecca, please, tech and its future role in procurement.
I mean, I'll be very brief, but I think one of the benefits of tech in procurement is going to be transparency. So I think that with the transparency agenda coming through the procurement reforms, we will be able to see much more easily those framework providers, but also those clients who are excelling on this agenda, because we will have transparent and objective performance metrics in which to on which to kind of measure people. So I think that that is, with BIM and digital twinning and all of that feedback loop that is required, I think that it will enable a much more intelligent client to really consider what they are procuring, but also it will be able to be displayed for others as to best-in-class clients out there as well.
And that's fabulous. I mean, you've mentioned the word, I try to avoid digital twins, you know, my use case for social housing. You know, how excited am I, and why? Largely because of the failures of Grenfell and the ongoing inquiry and what it's revealing. It's revealing a catalogue of error and all sorts of things. But I think the role of tech, particularly digital twins, will be game changing. But clients need to up their game too on the skills piece, right? I mean, not only SIPs, but everything else that goes in that bag of requirement. But look, it's 11:29. I'm conscious of time. I knew we'd run over. But all that remains really for me at this point is to offer my sincere thanks to Lord Hastings, my own sponsor and chair of the BBA committee, my fellow committee members, Richard Burge, Chief Exec at the LCCI, Liz Henderson, who's on the call, thank you Liz, and of course our anchor, Victoria Jane, as well as the back office team at LCCI. And to all of you for joining us virtually. Until next time, stay well, stay hungry, and happy hunting. Louise, Rebecca, thank you so much. And yeah, we look forward to the next one. Take care, everyone.